Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. I wanted to do something a little bit different on the channel today. Today I'm looking at all of the 5-star ratings I've given on my Letterboxd account. Of course, Chainsaw Reacts is the account. Make sure you guys follow me on there. Be greatly appreciated. I just want to go through here and just talk about the films, and I think there's a couple of shows on here as well. I've seen one right now, Queen's Gambit and Midnight Mass, on this first line here. Things I've given 5 stars, just chat about them a little bit, and just talk about these projects in general, because the goal this year is to watch more films, whether that's reacting to them on the channel, which I might do some more film reactions this year than normal, or just in general just watching more films, because I just want to watch more, because I do love movies. I just don't really find the time, and I need to find more time to do it. So I wanted to, like I said, look at all of the 5-star ratings, and so far I've given 57 projects 5 stars so far, and that's a high bar. Maybe if I go through this whole list at some point, maybe I change the listings, but right now I'm just going to kind of go through them as is, and maybe down the road maybe I'll look at them and kind of maybe change the numbers, because 5, which is pretty much saying masterpiece, perfection, and maybe my mind will change, but as of the time when I rated them, I gave them the 5 stars. So we're going to go from newest to oldest. So here we go. Here, of course, Nosferatu, Wild Robot, Dune Part 2, Godzilla Minus One. Obviously, like, these newer releases, like, of course, like, these are phenomenal films. I didn't mean to rush through all of them like that, but yeah, like, Nosferatu, fantastic. I think it's Robert Eggers' best film he's ever made so far, so I had to give it a 5 star. Like, I can't believe how great that film is. The Wild Robot surprised me. It really did. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I think the marketing was kind of strange at first, because I'm like, what is this movie really about? But I also like the fact that the marketing and the trailers, at least the ones I saw, because I didn't watch all the marketing, all the trailers, didn't give away too much. I really loved the story, really did. Dune Part 2, can't go wrong with that. Like, honestly, I think it might be the best film of 2024. Nosferatu, I think, is a close second for sure. But Dune Part 2 was just phenomenal. Like, you can't praise that film enough. Godzilla Minus One, definitely was surprised that I put it at a 5 star, but I think it's beyond what we were expecting, because over the years, Godzilla has been seen as kind of, not really taken seriously in certain instances. I grew up on Godzilla, so the fact that this film was as good as it was surprised me, but also I think it's deserved, because I'm tired of Godzilla being looked at by certain people, certain film fans, as gimmicky, kind of silly. Like, I love the fact that that film was so impactful with the story. Of course, Cross the Spider-Verse, can't go wrong with that film. It's honestly insane how good the movie is. Like, the fact that they actually improved on the first one is crazy, but I just love it so much. The Last Wish, Puss in Boots, I didn't expect to love it that much. The first Puss in Boots film wasn't that great. It wasn't. And I love the fact that the Shrek franchise is returning after the success of The Last Wish. I wish The Last Wish actually did better in the box office, but it didn't, unfortunately. But phenomenal film. The Northman. Northman, another fantastic film. I gave it a 5 star as well. I may lower that down maybe to like a 4.5, but as it stands, I love the story, love the atmosphere, love the tone, cinematography, the acting, everything. So it's kind of hard to put it lower than that. The Batman, same thing. Like, that that film is so good, and it's 3 hours. Like, it didn't feel like it was 3 hours. And here's a fun fact. My wife doesn't like watching comic book movies. Not really. It's not her thing. She really liked the Batman. I was expecting her to fall asleep in the theater, because she's fallen asleep several times in the theaters. But for this one, a 3-hour film, not once. I was surprised. The Batman kills it. And the fact that we're having to wait super long for the sequel is really unfortunate. But if it delivers as the Batman did, then I'll forgive it. But come on. No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, look, I'm still blown away by the fact of what they were able to pull off with that film. All 3 Spider-Man together. Sure, there's certain things they could have maybe done differently, or maybe could have added, but the way it stands, No Way Home is one of the best Spider-Man films ever made, and I love the fact that they were able to bring those, all those villains, and of course the 3 Spider-Men together. Midnight Mass is Mike Flanagan's best work to date, in terms of TV. Phenomenal show. I'm so glad that it exists, because, look, I love Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, great stuff, great shows. But Midnight Mass is the one that really stood out to me, and I really wish I can go back in time and rewatch it for the first time again. Same thing with Queen's Gambit, a show that I honestly wasn't expecting to love or like as much, because it's about chess. Not really a huge fan of chess, but heard so many people talking about it, checked it out, loved it, loved that show. And my wife did too. It was such a good watch, and I still bring that up randomly. I think about Midnight Mass. Like, you don't want to miss watching Midnight Mass. You don't want to miss watching Queen's Gambit. I wish Queen's Gambit got a second season. There was a rumor that they were maybe developing another season, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad where it's sitting. Endgame. So people might say, hey, look, Endgame is great, but not a 5 out of 5. For me, I am still thinking about that theater experience and what that film delivered. Sure, the first two acts could have been better, but that third act does crush in the last hour. But I love Endgame. I really do. Endgame is phenomenal. And of course, as you guys can see here, we're going a little lower. Into the Spider-Verse is 5 out of 5 as well. What more can I say? Phenomenal start to Miles' journey. And like I said, they improved in my opinion in Across the Spider-Verse, but they're both 5 out of 5 in my opinion. Infinity War also is a 5 out of 5. Like, the fact that they ended on the note they did was crazy, but I loved it. I really did. I can't get over what the MCU was able to accomplish with those two Avengers films. It's unfortunate that after, you know, the multiverse, the Infinity Saga concluded, that they've been kind of struggling. But I really hope that they're able to pick it up a little bit. Of course, these last couple of projects coming out, we'll see. Logan. Can't really go wrong with Logan. Let's pull this up a little bit to kind of hide it a little bit. Logan, I mean, look, it was Hugh Jackman's swan song, but of course it came back. But phenomenal performance. I love what they did with Logan. So good. The first Deadpool. Now, I think I would probably lower this, I think, at this point. I think I would. And I think I might at this point. Let's see. I think I might lower it to like maybe a 4. I mean, it's 4 or 5. But I also noticed Deadpool and Wolverine's on, because I think Deadpool and Wolverine's a 4.5. So yeah, I think I rated this too high at one point. So I think I'm gonna lower this to a 4, honestly, or maybe a 4.5. Let's see. Let's do that. So that'll update when I refresh the page. But I really love Deadpool, but I haven't looked at my list in a bit in terms of like all the 5 stars, so I need to go back and look at that. But yeah, so there's one that I had to change there, but I really love Deadpool. But yeah, Ex Machina. There's a weird story surrounding me watching this film in the theaters. I'm not going to get into it specifically, but basically I had plans to watch it with somebody else, and they basically left. So without really getting into it, went into the film, wasn't sure what to expect because it was just something in the theaters, and I decided to, select it as an option for me and this person to go watch. And yeah, Ex Machina was phenomenal. Like, it made me completely forget about the whole situation leading up to me seeing the film. It's like, it was that good. I really wish I could watch this film again. I love what they did with Ex Machina. It was so good. Days of Future Past. What else to really say? Sure, it's not the best in terms of like a lot of the future kind of original cast are kind of underused, but the fact that they're in the film and the way they've handled both cast, I think, was pretty damn good overall. I just love what they did with the movie. I just love the fact that they brought the original cast back, and there was an epic scene between the two Professor X's. Hugh Jackman, of course, shines. Everyone did a fantastic job. It's unfortunate that they kind of went downhill from here in terms of the X-Men films after this, but can't go wrong with X-Men Days of Future Past. Prisoners, a film that I wish people would talk about more. Like, this film is dark, it's brutal, but I love it so much. I love the ending too, because it kind of leaves things kind of open-ended in a sense, or at least kind of like what's going to happen next. Prisoners is one of those films that it's a hard watch, but it's worth it. It is worth the watch. Lincoln, I was always interested in this film, and I love the fact that it delivered on the storytelling, it delivered on the character. Daniel Day-Lewis shines as Lincoln, and I just love his performance. And sure, it's a film that you probably wouldn't think I would have as a 5-star, but it's one of the best performances in one of those films that I was just shocked by, because I was excited for it with the trailers when I saw it, like leading up to the release. But when I saw that film for the first time, I saw it in theaters, I was quite surprised. I was trying to think for a second. Did I see it in theaters or was it after this? No, it was theaters. It was. First Avengers. Like, of course, I have to give it a 5 out of 5. The fact that the first Avengers is as good as it is, because the first time we see these characters finally uniting and teaming up, it's great. It's great. I really love that first Avengers. Yeah, it's like when you compare it now to like what they did with Endgame or Infinity War. Sure, it's not on the same level in terms of like the scope. But that first time seeing these characters team up in that circle shot, I mean, it's iconic. It's one of those moments where you cannot forget that iconic circle shot of all of them teaming up. It's really, really good. Inception. Love the treatment of it. Christopher Nolan crushed with Inception. I really love that film. And I remember seeing it in the theaters, and afterwards, me and my friends were talking about it for like a good half an hour at having dinner after seeing Inception. Love it. Love Inception. And it's one of those movies where people talk about it, but they kind of talk about like, oh, well, this film from Christopher Nolan or this film from Christopher Nolan. Inception is one people need to talk about more. They really should, because it is so well done, and I love just the mechanics of it and the storytelling, and just the cast is just stacked in that movie. Then again, a lot of these movies have a stacked cast, especially Dune Part 2. Holy shit, like a lot of insane people. It says Avatar Spirits, but it's Avatar Last Airbender. phenomenal show. It's one of the best shows ever made. I'm not even saying it's just one of the best animated. It's one of the best shows in general ever made. Not much more to say. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best shows ever created. Toy Story 3. Look, I haven't seen Toy Story 4, and I don't know about Toy Story 5 if I'm not going to watch that, but I'll probably watch Toy Story 4 eventually. But Toy Story 3 to me was a perfect ending, and I really wish they didn't, have another ending, but it's fine. It's fine. Toy Story 3 is really good. I really wish they didn't continue that anymore. Okay, so next round here. So How to Train Your Dragon, the first one. I was surprised by this movie. I remember watching it with my wife years ago for the first time, and we watched the second and third one, I think, pretty much close together because we hadn't seen the movies before. I really love that first one. I think the second and third one are also great as well, but that first one was just so great with its introduction to the characters, the dragons. It was so fun, so I had to give it a 5 out of 5. Maybe if I look back on it more, I might maybe rank the second or third one as high as well. Maybe, I don't know where they're ranked exactly, but I mean, you can't go wrong with How to Train Your Dragon. It's one of those films where I'm so happy that it exists. The live action interpretation, we'll see. We'll see what happens to that. The Dark Knight. I mean, what else to really say? Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, he steals the show. He is the best part about it, but can't go wrong with Heath Ledger's Joker. And I think just in general, the way they handle the storytelling, Christopher Nolan, again, delivers an exceptional, a phenomenal film with The Dark Knight. The Prestige, another Christopher Nolan film, which pretty much goes to show Christopher Nolan is crushing it here in terms of his films. But The Prestige is a film that I always talk about. People talk about, what's some of your favorite films? Like, what's a favorite film? I think my favorite film, is Tombstone, which we'll get to. It's on this list for sure. But The Prestige is one of the films I also recommend and throw out as a mention because it's beautifully done and can't get enough of that movie. I love the twists and turns, and you have Wolverine versus Batman. What can go wrong? Spider-Man 2, I think it's the best Tobey film, obviously. And at one point, to me, it was the best Spider-Man film ever made. It still might be, in my opinion, but Spider-Man 2 is just phenomenal. It's a classic in its own sense. Of course, we have the 3 Lord of the Rings films here, so we kind of put them all together. All fantastic films. Really love them. And the way they adapt the original material into these 3 films, it's beautifully done. I can't get enough of it. And I watched all the extended cuts for all of them. So that's the versions that I kind of ranked, was the extended, the huge long stick. Because I remember watching them, starting with, of course, Fellowship and then going into Twin Towers. It's the Two Towers, not Twin Towers. Sorry, Two Towers, sorry. And Return of the King. I remember seeing the extended cuts, and then each day, once a day, one a day I was watching them. And what a ride to watch all of them years ago. Finding Nemo. It's one of those films that I think back more and more so because I love the story, love the message. And I remember seeing this in theaters, of course, when it was out in theaters back in 03. Was it 03 when it came out? Yeah, 03. I didn't see it there next to the title. But 03, I mean, even then I loved it. To me, even then it was still one of my favorite Disney films that I had seen, or in this case, I think it's Pixar, right? But yeah, so love it. Finding Nemo, love the film so much. X2. X-Men 1's great, but I think they upped it. They saw what worked overall for X-Men 1 and then really delivered with X2. So, can't go wrong with that. Chamber of Secrets. I don't know why, but I love that one the most. I think about that one the most is I love what they did with how they handled that book, because I read all the books. I remember I was obsessed with those books. And I thought, Sorcerer's Stone was good, really good. But Chamber of Secrets really just did something, I think, just a little bit better. And people may say, hey, Prisoner of Azkaban's the best one. That's a huge argument. And I think I might go through the Harry Potter films at some point, rewatch all of them and just kind of think about the rankings of them I have. Because they're all ranked on Letterboxd here. So I think I might go at some point and go through those, that series and maybe re-look at whatever I rank them and everything. So this may change. But as of right now, I mean, I'm not really arguing too much about that. Of course, Jim Carrey's How to Grinch Stole Christmas. I think it's the perfect Christmas film at this point. It's one that we watch all the time. My wife loves it so much, and to her, I think it's her favorite Christmas film. I think that she watches, but to me, it's pretty much perfect at this point. It's so quotable. It doesn't get old. It doesn't get tiring. I mean, I guess if you watched it every day, it would be, but can't really argue with that. I mean, such a good movie, it really is. The first Toy Story. Toy Story 2 kind of dipped a little bit, in my opinion. But not, I know a lot of people love all three, the first three films at least, in its own trilogy. But for me, Toy Story, the first film, was a classic, and Toy Story 2, like I said, kind of dipped a little bit for me, but it's still great. But the first Toy Story film, I mean, I'm not gonna argue too much. It's so good. All right, we're getting to some older films here. The Lion King. This was one that I watched a lot when I was little, and yes, the live action Lion King film. It's not great. It's pretty solid, but I don't hate it like a lot of people do. But the original Lion King is just, to me, it's one of the best Disney films ever made. It's just so good, and I love the animation, love the story, the voice work, everything just works so well for it. So, has to be a 5 out of 5, and that will never change. I can tell you that right now, just never change. Clerks, a film that, and maybe Clerks 2 might also be a 5 out of 5. It's not listed on here. Like I said, I think, in a sense, I need to go through my Letterboxd when I have time to kind of look at stuff and try to rework stuff. But as right now, this is where I kind of have a lot of things at. But Clerks is a film that just stands the test of time. It is just so interesting and innovative in a sense in terms of what Kevin Smith was trying to do, because like he was trying to get into filmmaking, and he created a very interesting and just very, I don't know no word to use exactly, because it's such a different kind of film that I have listed on here, really. But Clerks and Clerks 2, I would say, are just some of the best films that I've seen from Kevin Smith's discography, and so can't go wrong with Clerks and Clerks 2. So like I said, Clerks 2 needs to be on here. I still don't know why it is, but sorry. Tombstone, like I said, my favorite film of all time. Can't go wrong with it. And honestly, it is surprising still to this day for me that it's my favorite movie of all time, but it is. It's my favorite film of all time. Can't get enough of Tombstone. And it's one I always recommend to everybody that, hey, if you've not seen Tombstone, you need to watch it. My wife has still not yet to see it. She did offer to watch it, but it was like during like a storm, and it was like not the right time. There has to be a good time to watch this movie, because I know for a fact that she wouldn't really be watching it. At a certain point, she'd be on her phone. No, you need to watch Tombstone from beginning to end, no interruptions. So, Tombstone's perfection. It's the best film, in my opinion, that's ever been made. At least it's my favorite film. It's hard to say it's the best film ever made, but to me it is. Like, I just love it. Sure, the romance in some instances is not the best, but everything else, the acting, especially Val Kilmer, phenomenal. It's a masterpiece. Batman Mask of the Phantasm. It is insane how there are still people that are fans of Batman that have not seen this movie. Kevin Conroy is just perfection in all the times he's played Batman. But this film alone is one of the highlights, one of the golden moments, if you will, whatever word you want to use, whatever phrase you want to use, that stands out amongst the times that Kevin Conroy voiced Batman. Mask of the Phantasm needs to be watched by everybody. So, there's that. Jurassic Park. What else to say? What else to say? I mean, look, yes, it's an adaptation from a classic novel, but Jurassic Park is a film that blew everybody away back when it released. I remember seeing it when I was like, 7, 8, 9 years old. It's been years since it came out. I was scared, but I loved it. And I still think back on it because it still looks amazing. Even though they've been restoring it and upping the quality and everything in terms of like 4K and but it still looks amazing. Even the original time when I saw it, it still looked amazing. The visual effects, just everything they did with that movie, so good. We have 2 Disney films back to back with Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, both phenomenal. Like, I think Lion King might be my favorite overall, but Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, my wife would support the Beauty and the Beast one for sure. Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast are some of the best Disney stuff that they put out. I love Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast. I love both those films for what they did. The voice acting and the characters, the songs, everything. It's classic. You can't, like, I can't watch these films and not smile. Like, I just, it's joy. It's fun. It brings me back to my childhood. So, 5 out of 5, 5 stars. Why not? Why not? Who Framed Roger Rabbit? A film that I'm shocked that actually got made. Like, the fact that it actually exists is kind of crazy, but it does, and it is so good. And it's unfortunate that, there are people that haven't heard of this film or haven't experienced what this film has to offer, because there are so many things. There are still things I'm still learning about this movie. That's how much are, like, cameos, little small things, and little things you may not recognize or even notice. It's one of the films you have to keep rewatching over and over and over to find new things, to find little moments that you maybe just didn't notice that just changes your perception on certain scenes. It's so good. Loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Predator. It's one of those movies where the more I thought about it, Predator is fucking fantastic. It's always been good, but the more I thought about just what they did with that movie, because this film changed, I think, a lot of like perception in terms of like aliens and stuff. Like, of course, we had other films like Alien and Aliens, and we had other films, that were kind of changing the genre of horror and thriller and monsters and all that kind of stuff. We've had a lot of that, but for some reason, Predator stood out as one of those ones that just changed the perception of. And of course, there's a lot of copycat films based off this one. That's why it was so successful. It's unfortunate that they've kind of gone downhill from this since this film, but Predator crushes it. Prey was also fantastic too, but Predator, it's a classic. It's a classic. Fox and the Hound, another Disney film that honestly, when I was thinking about it, because when I created my Letterboxd and was just adding in films as I was remembering them, like, oh yeah, that film. Da, da, da. When I got to the Fox and the Hound, it brought back so many memories of watching this movie and how great and how sad the story is too at times. I love the animation. Like, that's the thing I really noticed a lot about with Disney stuff, especially when you get to like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Fox and the Hound. The animation just stood out so much in the look of it. I can't get enough of the Fox and the Hound. And the fact that Wyatt Russell's in it, it's crazy. Like the fact that not Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell, not Wyatt, that's his son. Kurt Russell's in this film. It's crazy to think. It's really crazy that he's a voice in that film. I forget which character he actually played, but love that movie. We're kind of side by side here, but The Shining. I actually didn't watch The Shining until more recently in my life. I've seen a number of clips, heard about the film, kind of knew what was going to happen through, because I heard so much about the film, I pretty much knew what was going to happen. But seeing everything in the context and unfolding, Stanley Kubrick did a beautiful job of The Shining. And the fact that he made some changes to the original novel, I understand it, but it was so good. I love The Shining. Like, it's creepy at times, uncomfortable, but the way Stanley Kubrick shot the film and the way that he got the actors to perform exactly as he wanted, and it works. Every single frame, every single thing that the characters do, it's all intentional. Love The Shining. Empire Strikes Back, the best Star Wars film ever made. I'm not sure if I put A New Hope on a 5-star. I think it is down there. Yeah, I do see it. But Empire Strikes Back, to me, it's the best Star Wars film ever made. It's so good. Like, I can't get enough of that movie. I remember seeing A New Hope like on a Friday, Empire Strikes Back on a Saturday, Return of the Jedi on a Sunday, back when I was 6 years old. And I knew back then that Empire Strikes Back was my favorite one. Back then, I knew that was my favorite one. Once I finished all three, I knew. And I don't think, maybe I'm trying to think, I don't think Phantom Menace was even out yet. So I think there was talk about it, but obviously back then I had no clue. But back then, all I knew was these three films. That's all I knew, right? But yeah, Empire Strikes Back, what can I really say? Everyone knows why that's a 5 out of 5. Last couple of films here. Of course, we have the original Halloween, the original Star Wars, of course, A New Hope, 5 out of 5, phenomenal film. Start of a whole new universe, a brand new thing that changed my life in many ways, so of course it's 5 out of 5. Halloween, to me, it's the best horror film ever made, in my opinion. People may say, hey, well, there's Jaws, which is 5 out of 5 as well. You can say Jaws. But for me, Halloween really stood out. And I think I watched it at a time where it just stood out in a certain way, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because of how young I was. Probably shouldn't have watched it for the first time when I did. But it got me obsessed with the Halloween franchise and slasher films, even though I haven't really seen a lot of them, but I've seen a number of them for sure. But Halloween to me is just perfect in terms of how subtle it is, how uncomfortable it is, but also just how tense you are going to get when you watch this film. Because it doesn't rely on blood. It doesn't rely on guts and gore like a lot of horror films do now. Like, there are now, thankfully, horror is now expanded more so into not just focusing on splatter and gore and all that. And that's fine if you're into that. But to me, I'm not. So I love the fact that this first Halloween film really didn't dive into that. They did start diving more into it later on, but at least for this film, did not. So, love Halloween. Jaws. I mean, look, do I have to say it? Do I have to, explain really why Jaws is up here? But it's Steven Spielberg's, I think, people might say it's not his magnum opus, the best thing he's ever done, but to me, I think it is for Steven Spielberg's. Jaws was just a film that changed everybody's opinion on the ocean. Like, that's how impactful this film was. Because films nowadays, there's people that watch it and they think about it, but it doesn't really change their perception. But literally, Jaws changed a lot of people's opinions on the ocean. And that's impactful. That is impact. That's change right there. Because before, people looked at the ocean a certain way. After Jaws came out, everything changed. Like, it's crazy that a film makes a huge impact like that, but it did. Young Frankenstein, to me, and Blazing Saddles back to back. So Mel Brooks, two Mel Brooks films. To me, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, I think, are some of the best comedies ever made. And sometimes, yes, there are things they're doing in there that is not the, can't really say now. But when you think back on the timing of when Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein both came out, wow, the same year. Holy shit. That's crazy. But to have both these films come out at a time and change the comedy scene like they did, because people recommend these films left and right. And of course, nowadays, people, when they recommend comedies, they're not going to recommend these older films. But to me, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, especially Blazing Saddles, but both of them are phenomenal for what they are. And they stand out to me as some of the best comedies ever made. And they will never be topped, in my opinion. Never. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original 66. It's an animated film that I watched quite a bit when I was younger, and I loved it so much. And it's still a classic, in my opinion. Same thing with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Both of these, Christmas films really made an impact when I was younger. Like, I would watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas every Christmas when I was growing up. Same with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. My mom was obsessed with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for the Bumble character. But both these films deserve the top spot and for 5-star because of how impactful and how great they were in my childhood, and how they're still great to watch today. They're still impactful. They're still perfect Christmas movies to watch, just like with Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Same thing. But yeah, so the list, of course, listed here. Last two here, of course, 1939's Wizard of Oz and The Passion of Joan of Arc. The Wizard of Oz, I mean, look, do I have to really say it? The Wizard of Oz is a film that changed cinema. It changed films, especially with going from black and white or kind of that, sepia tone to being color, Technicolor. Look, there's a lot of like discussion and kind of behind the scenes stuff surrounding the making of The Wizard of Oz, and you go look at it and go, what the hell was happening? Because back then, making films was very different than it is today. But it's one of the greatest films put to screen. In terms of what they were able to accomplish, it changed a lot of things in the industry in terms of what can be possible. And I love the performances, love the sets, love everything about it. It definitely doesn't play like a standard film, obviously, with how old it is, but you can't argue its impact, and you can't argue how great of a movie it is in terms of its songs, in terms of its performances, everything. And you can look at all the behind the scenes stuff as it is, but the final product, it stands the test of time. It does. I actually met one of the Munchkins a long time ago before he passed away. He was one of the last Munchkins still alive. I think it was like 12 or 13 or 14, something like that. But yeah, I met one of the last Munchkins from the film that were still alive at that point. So that was cool. I forget about that sometimes. Like, oh yeah, I did do that. The last one is a kind of more on the obscure side, The Passion of Joan of Arc. It's a silent film. And honestly, for me, like, I've not really delved too much into silent films. But this one is definitely worth the watch if you're going to dive into that realm, because I understand when it comes to silent films, especially for me, it's hard to get into them. There's people that like dive into the silent films and love them, love what they are. It's hard for people that are not like that. But for me, this one was so impactful. The performance of Joan of Arc, I forget the actress who performed Joan of Arc, but her performance is just stunning. And I love what they did and the look of the film and everything they did with it, and the fact that it was silent. It's crazy to think that as well, but they did such a fantastic job with this film. And if you know the story of Joan of Arc, you kind of know where it's going when you start the film, but the performance of Joan of Arc alone is what, to me, gave it a 5 out of 5. But everything else was just making it better, so no argument here. So, Passion of Joan of Arc, definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it. So those are my 57, well 56 because I moved Deadpool. I might relook at this and make some changes to my list in terms of like what's counting as a 5-star, but as of right now, this is my list, and I'm curious to know do you have a letterbox, or do you have a ranking system of films? And what would you put in your top five, or in your five, 5-star rating, or your perfection or masterpiece list? And what films out of here would you say is in your 5 out of 5, or like your top, films that you would say of all time? I'm curious to know if you have any matching ones. I'm assuming there are some matching, but we'll see. Maybe. Anyways, guys, hope you guys showed the video something a little different. And yeah, maybe if you guys want to see me do more of this, or some more kind of letterbox, or some sort of other movie related kind of content, let me know and I'll see if I can get to it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.